infected with BSE end up being eaten.
For a person looking at a beef burger on a plate in front of them, they have no way of knowing whether that beef burger is infected or it isn't.
This summer, 19-year-old Stephen Churchill died from an appalling, debilitating brain disease called CJD. It rarely strikes young people. Farmer Peter Warhurst is one of 4 dairy farmers to die of the same illness. These deaths raise an alarming possibility that human beings may be starting to die of the same illness which has raged among British cattle, mad cow disease, or BSE. The scientists cannot yet say whether or not we are. But the uncertainty has raised an even more urgent question. If this disease can strike humans, are we being protected properly from BSE? 5 years ago, the then Agriculture Minister John Gummer publicly fed his daughter Cordelia a burger of British beef to reassure the nation. Ever since, the ministry has continued to insist that beef is safe and that we are all being protected from mad cow disease by official controls.
There is no evidence that BSE is a threat to man, but we're working on the basis that there could be a threat to man, and hence we have all these various controls in place to protect the consumer.
But tonight, World in Action reveals for the first time that large numbers of infected animals are still being eaten. And we show that the protection we are promised is not always working. The first line of defence for any of us from BSE is the honesty of British farmers. So serious is the disease that farmers are obliged by law to report it. 300 mad cows a week are properly reported by farmers. But there is a temptation for some farmers not to tell.
Really, they want a BSE case like they want a hole in the head. They don't want it, do they? So they will do anything, a lot of them will, to get rid of them. Anything at all.
Once a farmer has his first case of BSE, every cow in the herd can be worth less. For an average-sized herd, he could lose over £1,000 a year just for reporting one cow.
The farmer very easily, at a very, very early stage, can identify an animal which might be BSE, might not be, but it could be, and rather than take the risk of keeping the animal a bit longer and having a full-blown BSE, it's much easier to ship it off to market or ship it off to the slaughterhouse, get rid, take the money, nobody's the wiser, and he's certainly avoided a substantial loss.
Do you know that farmers are putting the cows into market?
Yeah.
Because
they don't want the stigma of it, do they?
So if a farmer knowingly or unwittingly sends a BSE cow to market, who now will protect Cordelia from eating it? It's down to the market inspectors. At Mould in North Wales, there's a weekly slaughter market. In a matter of days, most of these animals will be served up as roasts, pies and burgers. Only healthy animals fit for humans to eat should be sold here. Farmer Jeff Moss is confident that we will see BSE cows being sold at such markets around the country, and that the inspectors won't spot them.
Well, I should think I've had about 2,000 over years, and they've been there then every time, I would think, but they've never seen them.
Using a hidden camera, we join the bidders around the ring.
A normal cow will just walk quietly around the ring. She'll walk around 2 or 3 times and then out.
There should only be normal cows at this market. BSE cows should not be offered for sale, but they are.
There's one.
This cow shows signs of BSE.
They're usually very funny on their legs when they come into the ring. A bit on the drunk side.
At our request, Jeff Moss bought the cow. This is Beeston in Cheshire, one of the biggest cattle markets in the country. we're secretly filming again. By the end of the morning, at our request, Jeff Moss has bought 2 more BSE suspects. The market inspector, who's supposed to look out for mad cows, has seen none. There are 250 cattle markets in Britain. On average, only 1 BSE cow is picked out by the inspectors each week in the whole of the country. We picked out 3 in a week at just 2 markets. These are the cows that prove that market inspections to detect BSE cows don't always work.
These BSE cows will lick the nose most of the time for nothing. It's got a frightened look about its face, hasn't it, about its eyes.
What did you notice about this one at market?
The first thing that attracted me to this one was that it was bad on its legs when it came in the ring. It was very jumpy as well, but it was its legs was incoordinated. She's holding her ears back and she flicks them more than she should do. She's playing with her head a bit. This cow's also been standing in a corner, pressing its head, as if it's got pain in its head.
It's time for the ministry vet to be called in.
But she's very good psychologically, this one. She's a typical classic type of BSE. She has a look at stuff and she's, you know, gets scared by everything.
All 3 cows are diagnosed as having BSE. The cows are destroyed by the vet and sent for incineration. Jeff, who makes a profit on the compensation, is awaiting final confirmation from the ministry.
Are you confident that your inspectors would be picking up BSE cows at market if they were put in?
Yes, absolutely.
We picked up 3 cows that were subsequently diagnosed as having BSE that the inspectors had failed to spot. How can that be a fail-safe system if it failed?
Because that's only one of the checks. The second check, as I said just now, is in the slaughterhouse, where all cattle receive a veterinary ante-mortem inspection when the animals are at rest, before they are slaughtered, to make sure they're showing no signs of BSE.
So if the market inspectors fail to spot a mad cow, will Cordelia be any better protected by the slaughterhouse inspection? The abattoir. It will be now or never that the meat of the animal will be stopped from getting into the human food chain. Cattle are inspected before they are slaughtered.
This inspection is going to take a matter of minutes and will only pick out really, really sick animals, animals that may be down or may have wounded legs or something of that sort. It's not likely to detect BSE.
The first stages of a BSE case may be as subtle as a simple temperament change. An animal that is normally placid might become a bit excitable, a bit irritable. That is not a sign you can pick up during ante-mortem at a slaughterhouse or you can see the market. You would have to know the individual cow. So the chances of detecting very early BSE are nil.
So just how many BSE infected cows are going into our abattoirs? Even if all the steps to stop mad cows getting into our food worked perfectly, the horrifying fact is that infected animals would still be going for slaughter. Most BSE cases are hidden from view. Once an animal is infected with the disease, it will be several years before the telltale symptoms show. The cow will appear perfectly normal, but inside the disease is building up. Most animals will be slaughtered and eaten before they show the final symptoms, but they're still harboring the disease.
Many of the cows we are eating will be infected with BSE, and there is nothing we can do to pick out the ones that are infected and separate them from the ones that aren't, because neither will show symptoms.
When we asked the chief vet about these hidden cases of BSE, he didn't want to discuss how many.
Could you tell me how many cows are we eating that are infected with BSE?
That's a peculiar question to ask. I'd start the other way around and say, first of all, that all cows or cattle that we believe may have disease are removed from the human food chain and are destroyed.
I mean, if I could ask you the question about how many cows we are actually eating that are infected with BSE when they go through into the abattoirs.
I've answered that question. What we do is a totally different approach.
What I'm asking is how many cows go into the abattoir that are infected with BSE?
As I said just now, what our policy is based, first of all, on scientific evidence.
Do you accept that there will be cows going into the abattoir that have BSE?
I've answered that already twice.
No, I'm afraid you haven't.
I have answered it twice.
So you do accept?
Sorry. Listen, can you turn off, please?
The government is not only reluctant to tell World in Action about the number of BSE-infected cows we may be eating. Graham Medley is trusted to make predictions about AIDS for the Department of Health. But his interest in the BSE epidemic was not encouraged.
The Ministry have always been very reluctant to release numbers that actually enable you to estimate with any decent precision, for example, the numbers of infected animals being eaten.
Have you tried to get the figures that you need from the Ministry?
I've been involved in 2 historical attempts to get it. Both of them have been rebuffed fairly strongly.
We hold nothing back. And I am very astonished that these comments are still made when we have a totally open policy on BSE and all the information that we have available to us on BSE and the course of the epidemic is made known.
One way to find out how many infected cows we are eating would be to test samples at abattoirs. But the Ministry of Agriculture won't do this.
The reason why the Ministry has not carried out random tests is because they would probably be appalled by what they found. If you even half accept that there is an amount of underreporting, any random testing, properly designed random testing, would show a very much higher incidence of BSE than the figures show. That is not a politically acceptable answer. And the one way of making sure you do not get, if you like, politically incorrect answers is don't do the work.
Why have you not done random tests to determine the number that will be going in that way?
We have looked at that, been a recommendation of one of our committees. It's been looked at very carefully indeed, and the view has been taken, because of the controls that we have in place, to do that, in fact, will be meaningless.
Is it not a matter that you don't ask the questions if you don't want to hear the answers?
Absolutely not. I totally and completely refute any allegation of that type whatsoever.
Most BSE research is tightly controlled by the government. The mavericks who persist in working independently are often criticised for rocking the boat. The most persistent thorn in the side of the ministry is Dr. Harash Narang. He's developed his own controversial test to detect BSE in the brains of cattle using an electron microscope.
What you see is in the electron microscope is specific particles. And if you see them in these brains, that means that brain is positive for BSE or mad cow disease.
No one has ever independently tested cows from an abattoir. So World in Action invited Dr. Narang to perform his test on a number of brains from cows which had already been passed fit for human consumption. Dr. Narang examined 31 samples and his results are disturbing.
In 8 cases, I found the particles which only exist in BSE, and that means these 8 cases are definite BSE cases.
Is there any doubt in your mind that the brains that you've diagnosed as having BSE actually do have BSE?
They definitely have BSE, the ones I diagnosed with the particles. But this is an underestimate even, because the ones where one does not find them, that means they might be incubating the disease and still have not developed the structures which can be seen under the electron microscope.
A second lab was unable to confirm whether or not Dr. Narang was right. But if he is, then his finding that a quarter of the 31 animals passed as fit to eat are infected with BSE is deeply troubling. There is one other way to check how many mad cows are getting through, by studying the statistics. World in Action passed unpublished government figures to epidemics expert Graham Medley, so he could start to crack the central mystery of just how many BSE cows we are eating.
The estimate for this year, 1995, suggests of the order of 40,000 animals are being eaten And this represents a ratio of 2 to 1 between the infected numbers and the numbers actually diagnosed. So that for every one animal diagnosed, perhaps 2 are being eaten that would have developed BSE had they lived.
We have confirmed these estimates from the best possible source. Buried in technical papers by ministry scientists is a figure whose importance was never meant to be discovered. The government experts believe that the official number of cows with BSE is an underestimate and needs to be multiplied by 3 to reach the correct figure. In other words, for every cow diagnosed and incinerated, there are 2 other diseased cattle getting into our food. Each week, 300 animals are declared as suffering from BSE. Now we know that twice as many, a further 600 are eaten, enough to fill 2 million meat pies a week. The chief vet had earlier refused to give us a direct answer about the number of BSE cows in our diet. Then we told him what we had found.
Do you accept that those calculations have been made by your own scientists here, and the answer they come up with are that there are 2 cases for every 1 reported?
Yes, that is a calculation that's been made, that there are a significant number of cattle that could be going in for slaughter, that could be incubating the disease. That's why we have a control program. So far as the consumer is concerned, they are perfectly protected by our control measures.
So what
that's
that means...
what must underline this. It's food safety that matters, and the food that we consume is fully protected by our control program.
But what that means is that if we are destroying between 250 to 300 a week, we will be eating between 500 and 600.
Now, you keep saying we're eating them. No, animals are going in for slaughter. But the way that you keep putting your question, eating these animals, yes, they're going for human consumption, but the infectivity is removed, if it's present at all, because we take out of the animal those tissues that could contain the infectivity, and that material is destroyed.
The fact is, BSE cows are entering the slaughterhouse, and we will